For nearly 3 centuries, Europe feared the appearance of dragon-headed ships on the horizon. The Vikings had burned monasteries, attacked bishops, raided Christian kingdoms, and challenged the political order of Western Europe. Yet by the end of the Viking Age, something remarkable had happened. The descendants of those same raiders were building churches instead of burning them. Their kings were being crowned by bishops. Their laws increasingly reflected Christian principles. Their children carried biblical names. The greatest irony of the Viking Age is not that Christianity survived, it is that the Vikings themselves became Christian. But was this truly a conquest? Or was it something far more complicated? Religion alone rarely explains major historical change. The conversion of Scandinavia was deeply political. During the 8th century, Scandinavia consisted of numerous competing chieftains and regional kings. Christian Europe looked increasingly unified. Kings who accepted Christianity gained access to diplomatic alliances, educated clergy, written administration, international trade, and recognition from powerful neighboring rulers. Conversion became as much about state building as theology. Christianity offered a framework for creating stronger kingdoms. Harald Bluetooth ruled during the 10th century. His greatest achievements were not only political but symbolic. The famous Jelling stone proudly proclaims that Harald made the Danes Christian. Whether every Dane immediately converted is doubtful. Pagan traditions continued for generations. But Harald's public declaration established Christianity as the official religion of the Danish kingdom. The same king who gave his name to modern Bluetooth technology became one of the architects of Christian Scandinavia. The Jelling stones are often called Denmark's birth certificate. They combine Viking artistic traditions with unmistakably Christian imagery. Runic inscriptions, the writing system of the Old Norse world, appear alongside one of Scandinavia's earliest depictions of Christ. Rather than abandoning Viking identity overnight, Harald blended old traditions with new beliefs. This pattern would repeat across Scandinavia. Norway proved more difficult. Many local chieftains viewed Christianity as foreign interference. Traditional religious ceremonies reinforced political authority. To abandon the old gods meant altering centuries of social structure. Conversion would not happen peacefully. Olaf Tryggvason remains one of the most controversial figures in Norwegian history. Unlike many missionaries elsewhere in Europe, Olaf often relied on royal authority backed by military force. Saga literature describes pagan temples being destroyed. Some leaders accepted baptism willingly, others converted under pressure. The transition from paganism to Christianity was rarely gentle. Ironically, methods once associated with Viking conquest now served Christian expansion. Olaf Harald's son continued the process. After his death at the Battle of Stiklestad in 1030, reports of miracles transformed him into Saint Olaf. His shrine became one of medieval Europe's most important pilgrimage destinations. The warrior king became a Christian saint. It is difficult to imagine a more dramatic symbol of cultural transformation. Sweden retained pagan traditions longer than Denmark and Norway. The Great Temple at Uppsala remained a major religious center. Christian missionaries often worked alongside local rulers rather than replacing them immediately. For generations, pagan and Christian practices existed side by side. Conversion was a process, not a single event. Old customs often continued beneath Christian language. Seasonal festivals remained. Sacred wells continued attracting visitors. Stories of elves, trolls, and spirits survived. Many Christmas traditions preserve echoes of older Yule celebrations. The old religion did not vanish overnight, it adapted, and for some, it continues even today. Even church decoration reflected continuity. Stave churches feature dragons, intertwined beasts, serpents, and elaborate knotwork. These artistic traditions descend directly from Viking craftsmanship. Christian churches became decorated using unmistakably Norse artistic language. The buildings proclaimed a new faith while preserving an old identity. Christianity gradually altered Scandinavian law. Church influence discouraged endless cycles of revenge. Marriage rules changed. Inheritance evolved. Literacy expanded through monasteries and clergy. Written legal traditions became increasingly important. Yet local assemblies, the things, continued to play central roles. Old institutions adapted rather than disappearing. The descendants of Viking raiders became rulers across Europe. Norman kings conquered England. Norse dynasties ruled Dublin. Scandinavian rulers governed powerful kingdoms. Rather than existing outside Christian Europe, Viking descendants became central participants in it. Christian institutions accelerated political development. Churches became centers of learning. Latin connected Scandinavia to the broader intellectual world. Kings could communicate with Rome, England, Germany, and France. Christianity brought an international network unlike anything Scandinavia had previously experienced. Influence flowed both directions. Northern Europe did not simply become a copy of Rome. Christianity absorbed Scandinavian traditions. Local saints emerged, church architecture changed, art changed, even popular customs reflected centuries of Norse heritage. The religion adapted to its new environment. History is rarely about absolute winners. Christianity succeeded in converting the North, yet it could not erase Norse identity. The people who entered churches were still descendants of Vikings. Their language remained Norse. Their stories survived. Their artistic traditions endured. The result was not replacement. It was fusion. When viewed together, this series tells a much more complex story than the familiar image of Vikings suddenly appearing out of nowhere to attack peaceful monasteries. Long before Lindisfarne, Charlemagne's campaigns had brought Christian expansion to the northern frontier through military conquest and forced conversion. The execution of thousands of Saxons and the destruction of sacred pagan sites created a legacy of resentment among neighboring peoples who shared similar beliefs and traditions. The Viking raids that followed did not emerge in a historical vacuum. They were shaped by political ambition, economic opportunity, internal Scandinavian dynamics, and, in many cases, reactions to the growing influence of Christian kingdoms. Understanding those earlier events provides a fuller context for why the Viking Age unfolded as it did. Over the centuries that followed, the conflict evolved. The same Scandinavian societies that had once resisted Christian expansion gradually adopted the faith, often because it strengthened kingship, improved diplomacy, expanded trade, and connected them to the wider European world. At the same time, Christianity in the North took on distinctly Scandinavian characteristics in its art, architecture, saints, and customs. The result was not the destruction of one civilization by another. It was the creation of a new northern Christian culture shaped by both traditions. Did Christianity defeat the Vikings, or did the Vikings transform Christianity in the North? Perhaps the answer is both. The Viking Age did not end because the Scandinavians disappeared. It ended because they changed. Christianity did not simply conquer the Vikings. It became Viking. And Viking culture did not survive unchanged. It became Christian. History often resists simple narratives of victory and defeat. The encounter between Christianity and the Norse world was not a one-sided story, but a centuries-long exchange that reshaped politics, belief, law, art, and identity across Northern Europe. If there is one lesson to take from this series, it is that civilizations are rarely erased. More often, they influence one another, adapt, and leave lasting marks on each other in ways that continue long after the battles have ended. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most fascinating transformations.